Hello and welcome to Sincerely Speaking. I am Marcy Amaro. I am extremely excited for this conversation. And I know I say that every week, but I'm really, truly excited about this one. I have, for the second time in visiting us here at Sincerely Speaking, Julie Lowe. But she has some exciting news to share with us today that I can't wait for you to hear everything about. So, Julie, thank you so much for being with us again today. I'm so excited to talk about everything you've got going on.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Thanks so much for having me.
Hi, welcome to Sincerely Speaking. I'm Marcy Amaro, your self-leadership coach. Now, what that means is I'm here to help you rediscover your calling, tap into your greatest potential and strengths, and eliminate those things that keep getting in your way and in the way of your success. So whatever success looks like to you, whether it is in your career, in your business, in your relationships, or in your life in general, I'm here to help you get out of your own way, remove the obstacles, and elevate all of your life to the next level. If you're ready to see everything that you're capable of and see what your life can look like, I invite you to head on over to marcyamaro.com and set up a 30-minute clarity and confidence call where we will talk about your mission, your vision, your goals, the things that you're here on this planet to create, what might be getting in the way up until now, and some actionable, amazing ways to get out of your own way to eliminate all those obstacles and reach the level of success that you've been dreaming of. Are you ready? Are you ready for the next level? Then stick around to this conversation of Sincerely Speaking and then head on over to marcyamaro.com and schedule your 30-minute call. Can't wait to meet you in person. Chat soon. Okay, so just as a little recap for everybody, tell us just a little bit the snapshot, right, of what you do, how you got started so that we can lead into your exciting news.
Yeah. So I'm a certified high performance coach and I help it helps if I can talk, right? I help ambitious professionals, there we go, prioritize their mindset, their health, and their relationships so that they can really thrive in their life and not burn out or sacrifice the quality of their work.
That is such important work. And she's amazing at it, by the way. I'm not just saying it because she's here, but she's awesome. So follow her on all the platforms if you don't already. And I'm going to go ahead and spoil the news and just spill it all out there. She has a new book coming out beginning of next month, right? And
October 5th.
October 5th. And I am so thrilled to be part of this process of getting the word out about this book. It's called A Few Good Habits. And Julie, I just thought we could start our conversation today by making sure that everybody's on the same page, because habits is one of those words that is thrown around, right? And everybody talks about habits, and there's a million things out there about what habits are and how they work. But I want you to give us your definition, right? The working definition of what we're going to be talking about when we talk about habits in this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, habits are routines. You could also call them routines. So it's things we do on a regular basis. And that is a key, the regularity to it. Because sometimes we talk about wanting to have a good habit, but we end up doing it very sporadically and it's very hit or miss. And it's not something we can really build on. I like to say it's sort of like brushing your teeth. You can't just do it once a quarter and call it good. It's something you have to do every day, right? It adds up and you have to be doing these things on a regular basis. So for me in the book, a few good habits are those things that you need to be doing on a regular basis and really help build the foundation for your life to set you up for success. So that's how I would define habits.
Awesome. And I think that that's really important to talk about the consistency piece, because what I have found, and tell me if you've experienced the same thing or in talking with people, right, is that most experts out there, unfortunately, will tell you, okay, do this for 7 days and then you're set. Or do this for 21 days and then you're good. But we know that that's not necessarily the case. And then we end up like beating ourselves up, right? So tell us a little bit more about that consistency piece.
Yeah, I don't think it's something that you can just do for a short while. And I also don't really believe that research backs it up that you can only do something for 21 days and then it's an ingrained habit. I think it's things that we have to build structure around and routine and also have a plan. Because that's the other thing. If you don't really have that plan and you just say you want to do something better, you want to exercise, you want to eat better, it's just a hope. But if it doesn't, land in your calendar, it's not going to happen. So it's something that we really have to keep up and make a way of life for it to have like a true lasting impact.
Yeah, that's, I believe, very, very important. I know when I was in my weight loss journey, I don't know if I shared this with you before, but I used to weigh almost 200 pounds and I'm 5 feet tall. So when I was on my weight loss journey, one of the things that I discovered was that unless I made it a lifestyle, it wasn't going to be successful in the long term, right? So, but the other thing that I encountered, and this is where I would love for you to help us and talk us through a little bit, is that I encountered this challenge of beating myself up at any little setback. Like I knew this is what I needed to do. I knew this is what I wanted to do. And most of us know what we need to do, I find, right?
Yeah.
But I would fall into this whole mindset of I suck, I can't do this, and beating myself up at any little setback. So what do we do, or what can we do so that that's not the pattern that we fall into?
Yeah, I think two things. Number one, don't look for perfection. I mean, you don't have to do something perfect every day. If we go back to the, brushing your teeth example, you miss brushing your teeth once, it's not going to ruin your teeth. They're not going to fall out the next day or something, right? So, don't beat yourself up if you're not perfect. We're not aiming for perfection, just a good, consistent pattern. You fall off the horse, just get back on and just pick up where you left off. The other thing is I like to plan for those quote unquote failures. I like to plan for those setbacks because the reality is life's going to happen.
Right.
The kids are going to get sick, work's going to get busy. Like you take a vacation, whatever, like something's going to happen that's going to derail your efforts a bit. And instead of looking them, as setbacks, we're not starting over from zero, number one. And number two, just know that stuff is going to happen and try to plan in advance as best you can. And I think if you have that plan, you're more likely to make a better choice. It may not be quote unquote perfect. It may not be what you intended, but if you have that fallback plan, then it's probably going to be better than what you would have done without a plan. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be a really simple if-then plan. I planned on running every day this week, but if I get up in the morning and it's pouring down raining, then I'm going to hit the treadmill instead or go to the gym or whatever. Have that plan in place. And it's way better than the alternative, which probably would be, I was going to run, but it's raining. So forget it. I'm just not going to work out at all. Right. So, some good alternative versus doing nothing at all.
Awesome. Now, the other thing that keeps, I keep hearing in my head as I'm listening to you talk, is this idea of good versus bad habits, right? I think that one of the things that sometimes trips us up is that we want good to be good and bad to be bad. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that and your notions on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times things are more gray than that, right? Like life isn't always so black and white. But when I would say a good habit, I would say those things that are either supporting your goals or that we know are supporting like a healthy lifestyle and where we're headed. And it's going to be different for everybody. Everybody's going to have different standards of like what a good workout looks like, whatever that may be. So we all have our different standards. So I think we have to kind of decide. And I think most things are not cut and dry unless we're talking about like doing drugs or something, like extreme. I think a lot of it kind of falls into gray area. So I think partly it's deciding like what matters to you, what are your goals? If you're planning on running a marathon in a couple of months and that's not on my dream list, like we're going to have different goals and different habits that we need to create. So it's I do think a very individual thing. And sort of like emotions, we don't need to necessarily put them into a good or bad category, right? It's all fair game.
Absolutely. And I love that you mentioned that it's individual, right? And there's a lot of gray area in there, because I think that that's another thing. Very well-intentioned people out there will tell you, okay, these are the habits you need to adopt and your morning routine needs to look like this. And this is where you need to go. And right. And they again, I believe they have really good intentions. And I believe that it will work for some people. It's just this notion that one thing will work for everybody that I sometimes struggle with. And I'm sure a lot of people out there do too, right?
Yeah, I agree. And one of the habits, a really great example from the book, is exercise. It's one of those things that we all know, like we need to have a better exercise routine and really have that daily movement and that daily exercise. But I'm really I don't want to say careful, but I'm really sure to say in the book, like that's going to look different for everybody, right? I was actually speaking to somebody on a different podcast and she said, well, what constitutes exercise? Because she said years ago, bless her heart, she was on a walk with her kids and a neighbor said, well, what are you doing? And she said, oh, we're getting some exercise. We're taking a walk. And they said, well, walking's not exercise. And she said it discouraged her so much because she was trying so hard to be healthier and get some exercise. And this random person, the exercise police in her neighborhood, told her that walking wasn't exercise. And bless her heart, she said, I didn't walk again after that.
Oh, poor
She said,
thing.
stop going for walks. And I thought, well, that's terrible, right? Because, okay, number one, of course, walking is exercise. And it's, something's better than nothing too. But
Yeah.
number two, like we're all so different. We have different goals. And like I said, if you're like somebody that's climbing mountains and running marathons, you're going to have to keep up a different, schedule than somebody that just wants to help their cardiovascular health or something like that. So while there's some overarching habits that I think are those good key cornerstone habits that are going to set you up for success and have a really nice trickle down effect and positive effect in your life, how you do that is going to be very different. And I do think it's important we find things that we enjoy, because if it feels like a slog and you hate it and you're just trying to grit through it, you're not going to maintain it. So, if you hate to run, I have some friends that hula hoop that have lost a ton of weight hula hooping. And, some people would be like, well, that's not exercise. Well, it is to me. Like, I can't hula hoop this hard. Right? Like, that'd be quite the workout for me. Right. So I think you have to find the things that you love and really make it your own if they are going to stick, for sure.
Absolutely. Now, just coincidentally or funny, I lost my weight mostly rollerblading. That was my exercise. But when you go from sitting all day to walking a little bit, that is huge improvement.
It
right?
is.
So it's sometimes celebrating those little incremental steps that we can take, right?
Sure. Yeah. And the other thing is, sometimes we think that if it doesn't look like, going to the gym for an hour, in this big, long, intense workout, that it doesn't count. But there's a lot of research that's been coming out in the past year or two about how tiny little bite-sized, I call them exercise snacks, tiny little workouts, like 5-minute or less workouts, can have a huge impact. And if you're especially interested in improving your overall health, like your cardiovascular health and increasing your longevity and the health of your ears, just those little 2-minute workouts can have actually a huge impact and can be better than one big workout a week.
Absolutely.
So don't discount the tiny steps.
Awesome. Now let's think about this idea of planning, because you've mentioned that several times too, right? And I believe planning is essential in anything that you do in life, especially if you follow through with the plan, because the plan is useless unless you actually work it out, right? And do what you have on there. But with someone who is understanding, okay, I need to implement some different habits, I need to change some things, how can they start planning for this? What would you suggest as the first step in sitting down and laying out a plan for success in this?
Yeah, I think it can be super simple. There's been some studies that have shown like just having that basic plan can 3x your chances of success versus just having some general motivation to do something. And again, it doesn't have to be complicated. They've shown that a simple plan is like, I'm going to work out for 20 minutes, Monday, Wednesday, Friday in my home gym, right? So you know when you're going to do it, you know where you're going to do it, what you're going to do, and how long you're going to do it. As long as you know those things, it doesn't have to be, necessarily any more detailed than that. They have found, like I said, you're 3 times more likely to actually follow through and take those steps because you know exactly what you're doing. There's no ambiguity. It's not like, yeah, I'm going to start working out 3 times a week. And then you get to Friday and you're like, oh, shoot, I haven't ever worked out yet because you didn't pick those days, right? So if you know when and where and what you're going to do, that simple plan, it sounds so basic, but you are far more likely to actually follow through and keep momentum. And then the second thing is, like I said, plan for those setbacks, plan for quote unquote failure, and know, okay, if this thing comes up, then this is what I'm going to do. Can't plan for everything, but we all kind of know like what has tripped us up in the past. Like, well, I know it's when the holidays come around, or when there's cake in the office and there's a party or something, I fall off my diet or like whatever. So think back to things that have tripped you up in the past, have that initial plan, and then have the if then plan, and then also give yourself a little grace and know it doesn't have to be perfect. I think you're way more likely to succeed than versus just winging it, right?
Absolutely. And love everything that you said, but I particularly love the fact that you are recognizing in the way you're saying things that we each know ourselves and the extent to which we get to do or not do certain things, right? Like, for example, for me, I know that if I allow myself any negotiating wiggle room, any at all, then things are not going to get done. I have to set a timer. When it goes off, get to it. Because if I give myself any kind of space to negotiate, I'm going to find a reason not to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think sometimes it helps to have that standard, right? Of like this is the way things are going to be, and I'm going to meet that standard. Can be very helpful. And yeah, just sticking to your own rules, or at least having what sometimes is called a floor and a ceiling, right? That's another thing that can be super helpful when you're planning is like, okay, this is what I really want to do. I have my if then plan, but what if life really gets crazy? What am I going to do? What's my minimum? What's my maximum? That can be really helpful for getting started on a habit, is having those minimums. Like, I'm going to do at least, one workout a week. It's got to be at least one, no matter what. Like, that's my minimum. And my ideal is 3 or whatever. And then also a ceiling can be really helpful for habits you're trying to get rid of or behaviors you're trying to kind of decrease. So for example, let's say you feel like you spend way too much time on social media, then you could be like, okay, maximum, I'm not going to spend more than 30 minutes a day. And as long as you stay under that, you're good. So having those floors and ceilings, a minimum and a maximum around habits, I think can be really helpful planning advice too.
Awesome. Now, you hinted at this idea of the overarching habits or the core habits, right? Would you be okay with sharing with us at least a few of those that you consider overarching or core habits?
Yeah. So there's actually only 4 good habits that I cover in the book, because they're the kind of big picture ones that I think have the biggest impact, kind of give you the biggest bang for your buck. That if you can focus on nothing else, I think these are going to be really important. And like I said, exercise is one of them, because whenever I was looking at, okay, which habits, because there's a lot of different competing advice out there on what you should focus on. So I really looked at, okay, what does the research say? Because obviously I'm not the first person ever write a book on habits. What does the research all agree on is a cornerstone or high impact habit that has that trickle down effect? Exercise always, always, always comes up. And my other kind of criteria for choosing these 4 habits was I wanted to find habits that specifically reduce stress. Because that's one of the big motivators for me in writing this book, is I was trying to find ways to keep my stress down. I've dealt with anxiety my whole life, and it really kind of hit its peak in 2020 during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I'm an ambitious person. I'm a high achiever. I want to be productive and get things done. And I can't keep burning myself out because I was in a really bad cycle. So it's like, what can I do that maybe can help with both, that can help me really reach my goals and keep my stress levels down? So all of the 4 habits also help with stress. And again, exercise is one of those things that all the science agrees. If you have a regular workout routine, some sort of exercise regularly in your life, it helps because it's burning off that adrenaline and the cortisol, all those stress hormones that are amped up when you're chronically stressed. Exercise is like the number one way to really help with that. And then another one that I think is common sense, but we don't really appreciate it enough, is sleep, and having a really solid sleep routine. Now, you asked what habits are. Sleep is technically not a habit, right? It's something we do, right? But it's the routines around our sleep that I really kind of focus on, because certain aspects of sleep obviously are out of our control. If you have a health condition or little kids that are waking you up and things like that, we can't control it. And I think a lot of us are not doing everything we can to really like set ourselves up for success. I think especially parents are really guilty of this, especially when my kids were younger. I know I was. They actually have a name for it. It's called revenge bedtime, where you stay up late after the kids have gone to bed because you're like, nobody needs me, nobody's touching me. Like, I'm gonna have a glass of wine. Yeah, I'm gonna have me time. And then we stay up till like midnight, even though we have to get up and get the kids out of the door early.
Yes.
And we're not setting ourselves up for success. And sleep is another one of those that just, we think, yeah, like I know I should. But like the thing that really got me, I think, whenever it came to prioritizing having a better bedtime routine, was when I really looked at the science behind like, how much your brain needs that sleep, because there's so many processes that happen when you're asleep. Like your brain is actually more active when you're asleep than when you're awake.
Yeah.
And when I was really stressed, I was having a lot of like brain fog, and it would bug me. I really hate it. It would drive me nuts because I would like forget words and things. And I've always kind of prided myself, I think, on like being sharp and being intelligent. And so that really bothered me. So that was one of those things where you got to find your motivator.
Absolutely.
And not being as sharp as I wanted and not having that energy and focus was so important to me. So I feel like we just have to treat ourselves like small children that have a bedtime routine. Like we're all like toddlers basically, and we need a solid bedtime routine to set us, up for success. And if it's important to you to be a high performer, to be sharp and be on your A game, like sleep is one of the best things that you can do. That and that regular exercise. And then I'll leave the other habits to the book.
Absolutely. No, but I agree with you. That sleep hygiene piece is so incredibly important. And let me know if you agree with me on this, because what I find is also that sometimes when we're looking at these habits, it's not so much about implementing the habit itself, it's about doing the work up front that we know we have to do that trips us up. Do you find that?
Sometimes, yeah, right. Because we know that we need to do it, but we're just not making it a priority, and we're not kind of getting our life organized in such a way to set ourselves up for success, for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Like with the sleep piece, for example, even when my kids were little, my husband and I had a conversation before we even talked about having kids, that if we were going to preserve our togetherness time, we needed to have clear routines around sleep with our kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so people sometimes get really like in awe or in disbelief when I tell them that from the moment they were born until now, and my oldest is 18, they are in their bedroom ready to go to bed at 8 o'clock. That's their time. And now that they're older, they don't necessarily have to fall asleep, but they have to be awake, getting ready to go to bed at 8, right? And so I believe that the problem for most people, and it was a challenge for us as well, right, is setting everything up in such a way that allows for that to happen. And it takes some like focus and determination and some deliberateness behind the actions and some clear intention, but it's definitely doable.
Yeah, it really is. Again, it's like that plan and like doing some simple math of like, if I back into this, like, when do we need to start doing the things that we need to do to get ready for the next day, to get ready for bed, to wind down? And we act like it's a surprise every night when you like look up from your phone and you're like, oh my God, it's 10 o'clock or it's midnight or like whatever, right? It shouldn't be a surprise. Same thing happens every day, right? If we just do some simple planning. But I think we just, number one, don't appreciate quite how important sleep is, most people. And number two, we just don't take the time and the intention and the focus to really set ourselves up in that way, because we're just not making it a priority.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, one more thing that I would love for us to talk about before our time is up, which is running by so quickly, but it's the importance of other people, right? Because one of the things that I find in the work that I do and in myself and in all these other things is that very often we use other people as excuses.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, please.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely helps if you have support in your life to set you up for success. It helps if you have some cheerleaders, and it can be definitely difficult when you don't have that in your life. And I also think about the fact that, the saying that you're like the 5 people you surround yourself with, right? So when you have those good examples and things in your life, it can really help. And at the end of the day, it's on us to really make our priorities happen and to really make this work in our lives. So, I mean, we can always look around and find examples of people that quote unquote have it harder than us and don't really have, the support, and they're still making it happen. So I think there is a piece of like personal responsibility that we have to take.
Absolutely.
And sure, things are not always going to be within our control, and we're not always necessarily going to have the support that we wish we had. And I think we can do our darndest to find some support, right? So like, I think entrepreneurship is a really good example. Like, I don't have anybody in my immediate personal circle that's an entrepreneur. So when I started my business, I had to find those people online. And it was such a huge support to me to find those people that get it, that get what it's like to run a business, that understand the ups and downs and the challenges. But I definitely had to go out looking for that. So I would also say, like, if you're really struggling because you don't feel like anybody in your life gets it and what you're trying to accomplish and do, go find groups. Like you can find them, whether it's online or locally, book groups, like whatever it may be, you can find people that are up to the same things. And I do think it helps. But at the end of the day, like anything else, like it comes back to us and us making things a priority.
Oh, absolutely. And one thing that I have found for myself is that setting boundaries is part of that planning process that allows us to do this thing or whatever that might be without using people as an excuse, right? If the people in your life understand what you're working towards, why it's important to you, and what you need from them or don't need from them.
Don't need that feedback. Thanks.
Thank you, but no thank you, right? Then it becomes a lot easier for everybody involved, because ultimately the people closest to us want to support us, but if they don't understand what that looks like.
Right. And sometimes people are not even letting anybody in their life know. Like sometimes I'll ask, like my coaching clients, like, have you shared your goals with anybody? And they're like, no. Like it's almost like it never occurred to them. Like, well, why would I do that? Well, it's like, well, like nobody can support you if they don't know what you're up to and what's important to you. So yeah, share that stuff and let people know, because most people, when they know what's important to you, what you're after, what you're up to, they're going to rally behind you.
Absolutely.
They don't have that opportunity if they don't know, if you're keeping it close to your chest, not sharing it with anybody.
Absolutely. Now we're getting close to the end of our time, but before we go, I want to give you the floor so that you can share with people more about your book, when it's coming out, can they pre-order it, how, and where can they connect with you to learn more?
Awesome. Yeah. So it's out October 5th. And as you said, it's called A Few Good Habits, and it'll be available first on Amazon. And really the book is all about the uncomplicated route to having more success and less stress. And I really debunk some myths around things like hustle culture and, motivation and willpower and why you can't rely on them. And then, like I said, I just try to keep it really simple. Like, what are the 4 things you need to focus on? Don't need a fancy, 20-step morning routine or anything like that. Like, what can busy people do that's going to set them up for success in their life without taking forever, without being complicated, and it's going to reduce that stress. And so I just try to make it as practical as possible. And honestly, I hope a fun read. I try to put as much humor and personality into it as I could, so it wouldn't be just a dry habit book. But it will be available October 5th. And in the meantime, you can actually go to my website and you can read the first chapter for free. So if you're not sold on it yet, go check out that free chapter, see what you think, and then you can grab it on the 5th. And you can find it on my website, coachjulielowe.com, or the book has its own site too, afewgoodhabitsbook.com.
Awesome. So go check all this out. I'm going to link all of Julie's social media and her websites and all that in the show notes and the description on YouTube. So you can go just click and check it out. But be on the lookout for that release October 5th. In the meantime, go check out the first chapter. Julie, as always, such a pleasure. So much value added. Thank you for being part of Sincerely Speaking today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
And go get the book. I hope you have found as much value and impact in this conversation as we found in creating it for you. If you have, then go ahead and share this with someone else in your life that you know might find it valuable. And in the meantime, don't forget about my offer to head on over to marciamaro.com and schedule your free 30-minute clarity and confidence call. We will talk through all your dreams, all your plans, all your goals, the things that might be getting in the way. And if it makes sense for both of us, I might invite you to join me in one of my programs or one of my coaching packages, but there's no obligation. And I promise you that this will be the best 30 minutes you've spent in a long, long time. So again, head on over to marciamaro.com, set up that time to chat, and I will see you on the other side. And in the meantime, share, subscribe, like, and I will see you next week here on Sincerely Speaking. Thank you.